Thank you for inviting me here. Last time I was in Tallinn was 20 years ago to receive an award together with 4 friends for a master plan that we designed in the frame of Europan 7 in Pärnu. And then I came often to Estonia, but in Pärnu, not in Tallinn. So it's really, I'm a little bit nostalgic. It's also the second time that I speak after Reinier. It's not an easy job. The good thing is that both speakers actually made a perfect introduction for my lecture. I can go fast, and then we can have a quick debate, and then we can eat, right? That's the challenge right now. I'm going to actually complete the previous presentations, and I'm going to talk about something weird, maybe, for architects. I'm going to talk about land, and you'll see why. Now, I don't have to explain this anymore, but in October this year, the European Parliament published this series of infographics talking about the housing crisis. But what is very important to know is that it is acknowledged, this is just a fragment from the text they wrote, it is acknowledged that a very big factor in the price of housing is the rise in the purchase of properties as an investment. So housing is not built for people to live, it's built because it makes money. The Parliament is also talking about the right to housing and the right to adequate housing. So this is very important. It was mentioned in the first presentation. It's not enough to have cheap housing, affordable housing. It's important that they're also good. And I know this very well because I was born in '77 in Romania, back in the time, a dictatorship. And I was born in this very beautiful Saxon city, so built in the 11th century by Saxons, Sighișoara. But actually, I was living in the city, looking at the citadel, but I was living down in the city in one of these prefabricated apartment buildings that you know very well. And I don't have to tell you about the conditions. This is a picture that I took when I went back a few years ago. This is the same building I grew up in, but this time insulated. So it is sustainable. Of course, it has been said, Estonia, the increase in housing prices in the last 9 years is 97%. This is absolutely huge. But this is not only a European problem. So it's absolutely a global problem, and you can read about it in the news everywhere in the world. And actually, the major point is that housing is a profitable commodity. It is profitable to buy housing, to sell them, to rent them. It is a safe investment. That explains the global housing crisis. And we cannot, with the money that we earn today, young people can absolutely not afford anything. Now, we've been involved in many studies, and we asked ourselves, how can we, architects, make housing more affordable? Is there a way to do that? So we looked, these are just several of our projects, housing projects, and trying to understand what made housing affordable. And I have to tell you that it was not the architecture, it was not the prefabrication, it was not whatever we as architects we could do, an incredible good design. It didn't help with the price. And then we experienced this in different kind of projects. This is 4 of our projects. We worked in public-private partnerships. We work in design and build formulas. We did totally private development. You have the tower down left, it's a transformation of an existing office building. So we work with existing buildings in all kinds of formulas, and it came to this. It came to land. The price of land has the biggest impact on the price of housing. And actually, private real estate developers, they tell us that they work with us just because we are fun to work with, not because what we propose makes their business model look better. Actually, what is important for them is the price they pay for the land. If they have cheap land, their business model works. If not, not. So what we can do, though, because there are many things that we can do as architects, is to take care of the other part, of the quality of housing. And this is something we can do, but again, not alone. For that, we need visionary politicians. For that, we need what we have in Belgium, and we see that it really helps. We need government architects, independent government architects that really guard the quality of architecture. And we need development agencies of cities that when they interfere, we see that the quality rises. Now, I was asked to talk about, if you want, new types of housing and to see, okay, if in the traditional type of housing we don't manage to find affordability very well, except if we have cheap land, is co-housing the answer? And I want to talk to you about a very long trajectory. A co-housing project today is like the biggest co-housing project in Flanders. You know, Belgium is this very funny country with 3 regions, and it's very important to be precise to say that it's in Flanders and not just in Belgium. So it's the biggest in Flanders, and it is in Ghent. And I believe that some of you probably visited. I met some of you in Belgium recently. You came to study in a study trip, and I know that some of you also went to Ghent to visit this project. Like in every project, we always start by having very clear ambitions for the project, and in this case we tried to repurpose an inaccessible building block that is, as you can see, along the railway in Ghent, a former industrial zone. These are the places where there is still a little bit of land today. A textile factory that stopped its activity in 1995. And then, for many years, it stayed empty. Until the city bought it and organized a competition for social housing and a sports hall in 2009. And we won that competition. And like we always do, as funny architects we start with the non-built space. We always start from the open space and try to find a logic and a structure, and to structure the space, and then to get to the buildings. And all good. We were very happy that we won, of course, but then all of a sudden we realized that there is no access road to this place. So there was a competition organized, but there was no access road. And it took us 7 years in which we kept on going back to the public authorities to ask for an access road for this project. 7 years later, the owner of the land next to the factory died. And then his son was very kind, and then we found an agreement, and there was an access road. But by that time, in 2016, the city of Ghent had the idea to try to do an experiment and to see if co-housing is possible in Ghent. What you have to know is that in Belgium, if you live together in the same dwelling, if you share, let's say, a kitchen, a living room, it's considered that you live together. If you live together, you pay taxes together. You are considered as cohabitant. So they had first to change that law to make co-housing possible. So that was a very important thing. So we think that architecture starts with regulations, starts with laws, starts with so many things. I mean, we come in the picture quite late. So they said, okay, what if we do co-housing on the site? So we forget social housing, we forget the sports hall. We launch a call for co-housing groups, and then 3 co-housing groups proposed themselves. So they were looking for a piece of land, affordable land, and a healthcare center for the neighborhood. So we had 4 co-housing groups in the project. So we call it a co-housing project. Very important in all the projects that we do is that they are not monofunctional. So we were very happy with this already, the mix already proposed by the city. But we also managed to create, to suggest other functions that would be shared, that would just increase the mixity in the project, because we believe that this is quality of life when you mix programs. And then you see, this is how these people live together. This is just a normal day. It's not staged. We hate photographs of our projects that look like a movie, really staged photography. So life in our projects is important. Our architecture is just a background for life. And then you see that we try to keep as many walls as possible of this factory. We would have loved to keep the factory, but the factory was not there anymore. So you see, every group has its own building with its own identity. It was a lot of work for us. Of course, the other question was, okay, how are these people going to live together? And then we worked hard together with them to find all kinds of spaces that they can share in various ways, even in ways that we cannot imagine today. So we gave them a wild card, something that they can decide later on what to do with. And not only that, we looked for these collective shared spaces on the ground floor, we also tried to get them up in our buildings. We believe that collective space and in certain instances public space should go in buildings. Buildings should be porous. And again, very happy people, they use the circulation as an extension of their house and to meet. The circulation is outside, which is exceptional in Belgium, but people seem to still enjoy it. And they play and do all kinds of things. And we will see here just a few plans. So the project has a total of 7 levels. And then if I go just from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3, you'll see that each unit is absolutely different. There is no repetition in this project. And there is an explanation for that. Of course, the idea to the question of regeneration came to us not just because, of course, we were very charmed by what was there, but also because of thanks to the inhabitants, which were very aware of the challenges today, and they were very motivated and activists and trying to push us even farther. And these are the graffiti artworks, really artworks on the wall that we lost because of all this time that the factory stayed empty. So we had to cross them. We made an inventory when we won the competition, and then we had to cross them one by one when we started to design in 2016. It's a very famous artist, Roa, a very famous Belgian artist, famous also abroad, and we did really our best to save as much as possible. The inhabitants then recuperated bricks by themselves. They did this, it was their own initiative. And they also asked us, and we liked it very much, to foresee flex units. So to design several units which then can be used in different ways by them. And right now, one of them is dedicated to refugees. It was a common decision. But you can imagine the rate of divorce in Belgium is very high. So you have these recomposed families, families that have 1 week 2 kids, 1 week 5 kids, because the 3 of the husband come together with the 2 of the wife, and sometimes no kids. So to absorb this fluctuation, such flex units can be very, very useful. Then the city, next to the fact that it provided cheap land to these co-housing groups as an experiment, they also co-invested in geothermal energy. So this was also one of the first projects to use that in Ghent to a success. So that was another good thing that the city did. And the city also acknowledged the importance of bats. Bats are very important for biodiversity. In the basement of this factory, exactly precisely under this space, a colony of bats, so this Batman, you know, a colony of bats they were living there, and we were asked not to disturb them. So it was a very big challenge of how to organize this park and how to organize, for instance, artificial lighting for people, so that you don't disturb the bats. So we also have a little park next to a bigger park in this project. Again, I wished we could have kept a lot more of this factory. The bats are very happy. We managed to realize this project without disturbing them. They have their own entrance, and there is a permanent monitoring that happens for them. The process, of course, is very important in such a project. And then, of course, you have 59 families, all with their dreams and their needs and synergies. And we managed to first, actually, we started by designing the process. So instead of designing buildings and open space, we designed the process and organized representatives of all the groups and try to talk to them and try to come to a master plan and try to respect absolutely every single need of every single group and to shape the program. And we made models and we made many Excel sheets to negotiate between the different groups. We invited the neighbors to have a say and to look into the project. And then we went towards the building permit application and starting to reiterate between collective and individual needs. And then we had a brilliant idea to talk to every single family. We said, for once, we know who's going to live in our project, let's do that. I don't have to tell you how much work that was. But I would say that we are good friends with all the inhabitants. These are some of them in our office. We have a piano in the office, so we took a picture each time they left after a consultation. So we organized ourselves to receive them and to take notes of absolutely every wish and try to combine these wishes. And we went into the execution. And then again, of course, people still had something to say. The last remarks, we incorporated everything, doors, windows. I mean, basically we designed 59 apartments. And the contractor was brilliant. So in a co-housing project, as we know, there is no private developer. You have the inhabitants, and then you have the builder, the construction company. They made a model of the different buildings to see where they can place their cranes. And then, of course, they built the geothermy. We kept the walls. It was during COVID, most of the construction sites, so that was also a challenge. The first dinner, like when the foundations are placed, there is this tradition in Belgium. They have dinner on site. And the result is there. They had more than 1,500 visitors, these people who come to see how this project succeeded. The project became more expensive than what was estimated because we listened to every single wish. And they told us, they said, dear architects, thank you very much for listening to us, but we wish you didn't listen so much because now our project is a little bit more expensive. However, the support of the city played a very important role in this. We also prepared for them a manual of how to maintain the building, and I find that we architects, we should be more seen as doctors of space, like doctors of buildings. And the doctor, you have the surgeon, and then you have the follow-up, and we should follow up the buildings that we design, but nobody wants to pay us for that, and sometimes we are even not wanted to do that. So again, this is an example to show you that the price of land is very important. The success of this project resides really in the vision of the city of Ghent to provide affordable land to these co-housing groups. And then the quality comes from this cooperation between architects and the city architect of Ghent, the city development agency, and some forward-thinking politicians in Ghent. Now you will ask, okay, but what is the role of the architect then? If land is so important and we can just only look at the quality, what is our role in the affordability of housing? And Reinier, I have to tell you that in the Webster dictionary, the definition has two meanings, actually. And the second meaning is a person who designs and guides a plan or undertaking. So you can architect the American foreign policy, for instance. And this is something that I tried, not the American one, but I tried in Romania. So in 2016, I went back to Romania to be part of the government, a Secretary of State for Cultural Heritage, and we worked on a cultural heritage code. And that was my first time when I saw the impact that you can have on such a level. Happy birthday. We talked yesterday about it. I think it's very important. And then all of a sudden in Belgium, apparently it's very important. It's seen as very important when you are Secretary of State in another country. I was invited on TV to talk about the crisis of the government. You know, in Belgium, when there are elections, it takes forever until we have a government. And then they are asking me, well, what about a technocratic government, a government of experts, as was the government I was part of? Actually, I said that I find it a good idea, but the bigger problem, which is not left or right, is that we have reached the limits of a system, and that is actually the problem at stake. And I'm very happy to always show this slide, because the entropy law on the left has been developed in 1971 by a Romanian economist, Nicolae Georgescu-Roegen, and then in '72 you had the limits to growth that warned us clearly about the fact that we will damage the ecosystems and the social systems if we continue to consume our natural resources like that. And then in '87 you had a sustainable development diagram, the intersection between environmental, social and economic spheres, and then you have the donut economic model, and we should all stay on the donut, and we shouldn't go beyond the planetary boundaries, and nobody should fall into the small circle, meaning that is poverty and inequality, and also way too expensive housing. And our point at the office is that the root cause of all the crises that we are faced with today, including the housing crisis, is this depletion of natural resources. Because we see land as an important, as a vital natural resource. So land is important not only for green corridors, cooling corridors, for rainwater, for biodiversity. It's also a very scarce resource. It's a resource that we don't have anymore for housing. And actually, Renier is right. We should not build anymore. So actually now what we have to do, so I'm trying to write about it a lot to promote this idea of land and reconfiguring land, thinking about land in a different way, and why shall we own it, you know? This question of who owns the land is a very important question, and it decides the access to the city, the right to the city, the right to housing. It decides everything. So the idea is, what can you do? Is to have private developers and cooperatives develop on publicly owned land. But you can also go for community land trusts, in which the land is actually not sold, it's kept in a land trust, and that makes the housing up to 20% more affordable. I'm also in the board of directors of an organization, a foundation that does this in Belgium for people older than 55 years. It keeps the land in the foundation and in a land fund, and sells the housing, develops housing and sells them to people who then cannot sell them with profit. If you want to sell, you can, but you just pay the price you paid plus inflation. So there is no speculation involved. And then you have France, where the law Laglaise is already applied for new construction, in which land is put into a land trust, into a public land trust. This land trust can also be private, but in France, this is the critique on this law. In France, these land trusts are all public. And then again, the housing becomes cheaper. But you can also look into regulations. And I've been involved in the reform of the Brussels building regulations, so urban regulations. It's all the regulations that you have to comply to when you apply for a building permit. And then we changed the old regulations completely. The first chapter is the open space. It's, again, the relationship with land. But we also looked into affordability of housing and into not demolishing anymore. So it is forbidden, it will be forbidden when this new regulation will be applied. It will be forbidden to demolish unless the building is really a danger. But we are also involved in a European citizens initiative against demolition and against speculation in Europe. Estonia is also a member of this initiative. It is a bottom-up initiative. We will need 1 million signatures. We see space as a resource, and we also think that it's high time they will stop demolishing. There is a website, and there are plenty of renovation stories that you can see on this website. And then last but not least, I was invited in a foundation, a European foundation, to be a co-founder of the European Foundation that looks at next practices. It looks at all kinds of policy recommendations that we can take from one country to the other. So the answer to the question, how can we have more affordable housing, is actually to lease land, so not to sell it anymore, and to stop demolishing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've run into a situation where we have a slight delay in our schedule. So just one question from Slido. Regarding the cooperatives in Ghent, how long did the whole planning process take, and how were the cooperatives initially formed?
The cooperatives, the co-housing, because it's it's not yet cooperative, so people are not shareholders. At the end of the day, they are still owners, and they own the shares, co-own the share space. They formed themselves, it was their own initiative, so it's really a bottom-up initiative. In Ghent, unlike in Brussels, the building permitting process is shorter, so it takes less than 1 year. In Brussels, it can take forever, so it's a smaller city and better run city than Brussels. Brussels is very complex.